Hello and welcome to My Voice podcast. I'm Alex Wilkinson, a sport and exercise psychology student from Loughborough University. I'm currently on an internship with Sport and Communities, who are a community development organisation that supports all members of the community, from young to old, across a broad spectrum of needs. This podcast is part of the My Voice project, a national community lottery funded programme that helps to give young people a voice in their community and a platform for creating change and social action. Thank you for taking the time to join me, and welcome to My Voice podcast.
I'm joined today by Topical and Dave Richards. How are you both? You okay?
Yeah, I'm all right, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, I'm well, thank you. It's good to have you back on, Adrija.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And we've have our other guest, Dave Richards, who is now turning into a My Voice regular coming up on these podcasts. So thanks again to you both for coming on.
No, not a problem at all.
Today we're going to be discussing the Better Health campaign. This is a new government restriction to really try and tackle obesity in our country. The government have realised through lockdown that people have probably been eating more unhealthy diets and leading to sort of obesity and gaining weight. And so one of their first restrictions that they have actually announced came on Monday of this week, and they said that they're now banning junk food advertising on the TV and online prior to the 9 p.m. watershed. And that's one of their first things that they're going to do aimed at tackling obesity. I just want to get your thoughts on it, to be honest, in general. How do you feel about that, Adrija? Do you think it's a good idea?
The advertising ban, I think, there's good and bad, obviously, because obviously the younger generation will see less adverts of, junk food and things. So you'd think that it would change sort of people's outlook on fast food, and maybe like eat it less. But really, I don't know. I don't think it would make that much of a difference personally, because it's not like people will, kind of forget what junk food is or something,
No, I agree with you, and I think I've got my own sort of issues with that idea, because I think, well, okay, there's no advertising up until 9. So then at 9 o'clock, are we just going to be inundated with hundreds, one after another, of junk food adverts?
Yeah.
McDonald's, KFC, Pizza Hut, Domino's, they're going to see a spike of food orders after 9. And it's people will still see the adverts and get inspired and feel influenced to get the food, because we've all been there when we're sat around, watch a bit of TV and you think, oh, that looks nice, or I'm hungry now. But the same things will happen, but just maybe later on at night. So maybe younger people won't see it as much, but definitely adults watching TV, they'll be more aware of it, I think. And with the new Deliveroo and Uber Eats and lots of other delivery services, it's almost it is easier now than ever to get food to your house, and it's a click away, couple clicks away on your phone, tablet, laptop, whatever it is. So yeah, very, very easy to get unhealthy junk food to your house. There's a few other restrictions. I don't know if you saw any, Dave or Adrija. What did you see any of the other restrictions that they brought in?
I haven't seen any specifically.
No, they had one, which was certain foods can't now be promoted at the checkout. So when you're at the checkout and there's loads of crisps and chocolates and sweets, that's now going to be banned. So you can't promote those items at the checkout to try and stop people buying last minute decisions. When you're hungry at the end of after you've been shopping and you see a chocolate bar and you think, I'll grab it for the car home or whatever.
Thing is, it all comes down to convenience. I think when we think about the food, we don't actually think, particularly myself, I don't think if I ever go for the fast food option, my thoughts are, yeah, I could eat that right now. My thoughts are actually, how quick is it to eat, because I'm in this time, I've got this time and I've got that time, I've got this to do, that to do. I need something quick to get that, and I think the problem is there's an illusion that healthy food takes longer to make and healthy food is harder to come by. And I don't think it's the case. I think it's just a case of it's so easy to get to see other people with that, having that type of food, and then you're reminded that it is so convenient, and I think that's a big concern. I think this is why they brought it in, and especially when we think about the impact of obesity, when we're talking about the coronavirus and the impacts of that virus on your own respiratory system, and you need a good immune system to combat that type of virus. So I think they've done it in a way that stopped, and there was a massive influx, wasn't there, of like people going to McDonald's, going to KFC when they reopened, and
when they closed, people were queuing, and when they opened, people were queuing.
Exactly, yeah.
People were waiting. I mean, I'm sure. I saw one was amazing. I think it was on social media. There was somebody who created a cardboard cutout of a car and waiting at the drive-through because they weren't allowed, obviously, inside. They were there waiting in a cardboard cutout of a car. It's like madness, but that's the lengths that people will go to do that. I mean, that was national, so I imagine that was just once in a blue moon that would happen. But
having a bit of a joke and camaraderie, but the fact is that people are so desperate for a change and to have unhealthy food. A lot of people really, really missed eating junk food and eating unhealthy food when you're out, when really it should come down to your own healthy cooking at home. You're probably both aware of the other campaign which they announced. Probably it almost seems like a bit. They've done it back to front, because a couple of weeks ago they released the Eat Out to Help Out campaign starting on the 1st of August, encouraging people to go out and eat. Obviously the food's probably of a better standard and healthier, but places like Nando's, they're doing 50% off up to £10 per person, so you can end up going out and eating for next to nothing. So yeah, they've obviously done that to get the economy going and get people out eating in restaurants and things like that, which you can totally understand. But
then we forget about the impact of the long-term impact of obesity, which could then impact again on the economy, because it's going to cause potential constraints on the NHS. We know that it's a significant amount of money that's spent on one individual in treating issues with obesity. Now, and it costs the NHS a fortune. So there's again issues in that way when public sector services are becoming under constraint because private sector services are requiring so much support. So it's a balancing act, and you've got to. Unfortunately, you can't. Once the freedom's there, you can't stop people making those decisions. The private sector businesses like that, particularly the well-known fast food chains, McDonald's, your KFC, Burger Kings, whatsoever. They obviously won't take into account that, I don't think, as much as. But I think there's a massive contradiction between that first campaign that you mentioned, which was, I can't remember which one it was, but that first one where you eat out to help out. I think that one to this one, which is completely a contradiction.
Yeah, it is, and I think the main thing is it's about education. It's about helping and showing everybody in the country what it means to eat healthily. Everything to do with the eat well, play, and a balanced diet. As you know, Adrija, we've done the cook, eat, play together, and we've worked with young people. We've worked with families, trying to get them to make better decisions when eating food, encouraging them to try new food, educating them on what different foods do and what they're good for you. And I think the money that they should be funding and putting into is for those educational services and getting it right down at the sort of the basics of primary school, and maybe having like obviously these adverts are now banned for having junk food on before 9. Well, instead of having the junk food adverts, why don't we have a healthy food advert, a 30-second clip on how to cook something healthy? It's so easily done, and it motivate people, inspire them, and definitely help them to make a better decision. If you saw somebody cooking in a really quick fashion, or even chopping up some vegetables, or having like vegetables and a dip or something, some healthy snack, if you saw that at 8 o'clock, it might think, oh, actually I might go out and do that, or I might get that for another night. So that would be probably a better solution than just banning all junk food adverts, because although we won't see the junk food and it'll at that moment inspire us to maybe order some, we still know it's there. So if you fancy it, you're still gonna go out and eat it, aren't you?
Thing is, I think as well, what we got to take into account is when we can, you don't know really what you've got until it's gone. So when you obviously, if when obviously McDonald's and and all those fast food chains closed their doors for coronavirus, they obviously, when we say if we're trying to ban all fast food, obviously people can't get it. But then these are legitimate organisations that will I've got employees who obviously need to survive, and I completely understand the importance of providing those healthy meals, but I think it's also important to note that they create a lot of business for to employ a lot of people in the countries, particularly at the moment where there is potential fears around job security. And I think that's important to note that they that they will in some ways they've got to survive, so they've got to make that money some way or another. It makes what gets me is we see McDonald's and other fast food chains promoted and sponsored by in athletic events. Now it's interesting that they're trying to promote being athletic and being being fit
with the fast food chains, isn't it?
This is it, yeah. And I think it's I think the Better Health campaign has come at an important time. I think it is too late. I think
it's better late than never, and they've got to implement these things quickly, haven't they? And they've got to show change, because lockdowns cause so many problems in terms of weight gain and things like that. People aren't going to the gym, and they've really a lot of people have noticed weight gains and things like that. So the government have had to introduce these things, haven't they? I think
definitely.
I definitely think with the restaurants as well, they've said now that restaurants with any restaurant or chain or cafe with over 250 employers, they're now legally required to label the calories of their meals on the menu. Now, I've seen a few comments and discussions about this. It'd be interesting to get your thoughts on it, Adrija. Some people were saying that, all right, we might see the calories on the meal, but will that actually make you change your decision? Will it help you will it give you an informed decision on it? Or is it just going to make people feel more guilty for having a more calorific meal? Because calories don't necessarily mean that it's unhealthy. And people could go for a calorie more unhealthy meal. I don't know what your thoughts on it from sort of a young person? Are you someone that calorie counts? Are you aware of it?
Yeah, I think it's quite interesting because this is what I mean. I personally, I don't really calorie count. Like, if I say go out for some fast food, like maybe I'll have a look at which option is like got less calories. But other than that, I'm not a strict follower of, calorie counting or anything. But I do know a lot of people who are.
Yeah.
And especially people with, eating disorders and other, health issues like that. Seeing so many calories on menus wherever you go, that does have a big impact on people suffering from these illnesses. And I don't think the government has taken that into account at all, because people are going to eat whatever they want to eat regardless of calories, except for the people with these issues. I don't think putting calories on a food menu is going to make that much of a difference.
That's the problem I've got with that current idea. I think it's just making those people vulnerable to the idea that they're already counting calories, they're already aware of what they're consuming calorie-wise, and that in their head they're trying to stick to 500 calories a day for some people, in and even less in extreme cases. And if they're seeing that a meal is 1,000 calories, that's so overwhelming, or it becomes a massive issue, so they prefer not to eat. Now, these are the type of people that the government aren't focusing on, but just as obesity is an eating disorder, is a health issue, it comes almost from a different type of eating disorder. We've then, on the other hand, got anorexia and bulimia and other really extreme mental illnesses and eating disorders that people are fighting on the daily. So something as simple as seeing calories on a meal and on a menu for, let's say, 95% of the population, they might not think of it. That 5% really will struggle to sort of digest that information. You just got to be aware of other people's perspectives in that sense. So I totally agree with what you're saying there, Adrija.
I think it comes to understanding. I think when we talk about calories, we've all got to hit a certain calorie target for our or what's recommended daily. Now that will vary from person to person depending on how active they are as well. Like for instance, with my running training, which I've been doing recently, I've had to increase a lot of my calorie intake. But it's not just calculating those calories; it's calculating the macronutrients that come within it. So, how much unsaturated fat am I having? How much protein am I supposed to have? How many carbohydrates am I supposed to have? And I think when we talk about, I think we're going a bit, we talk about health. You could have the same amount of calories a day, but you could have a lot of saturated fat in that diet. You could have a lot of high carbs in that diet that is not being utilized, and that stores in another way. And that's, I think, generally, I think it's if understanding how those micronutrients work, particularly for myself, has been really beneficial. And understanding how the changes to how the food going into your body is being processed, because I think we see food. I used to see food, when I was hungry and just grab food whenever. But now I try and look at what is in that, and I try and record it. And that does take time, but I found it to be really beneficial.
Yeah, definitely, and I think that's where education comes in, and about the macro and micro, and what healthy calories are and unhealthy calories, and what healthy fats and unhealthy fats are there. But all these things make up a whole picture of healthy eating. It's a very complex issue, and you can understand the problems that the government face with it all. And if you're struggling to feed a family through financial issues, and you're then expected to feed everybody on healthy foods, some families just can't afford to do that. So it is a really, really, really tough thing for a lot of people. So you have got to be appreciative of them and the situation that people are in, to try and make their life and their diet and their lifestyle as healthy as they possibly can. Because although we know diet is a massive part of obesity, activity, sport, everything like that comes into play. And here at sporting communities, we know the importance of exercise and sport, and not only to get you out running, get you fit, active, really good for your mental health and your physical health. Once you start getting more active, your body ends up burning more calories, and it has so many positive benefits carrying on. So yeah, it's a huge topic, isn't it? I think we're all respectful of that, but it's interesting to see how the government have recently decided that this Better Health campaign could definitely work, couldn't it? I mean, we're all in agreement about the ideas are good, and some
definitely.
some of them will work in helping people not to be influenced by adverts and what you see at the checkout and making those rash decisions.
I think what we've got to be
leads to a healthier lifestyle.
Yeah, I think what we've got to be cautious of as well is that we often forget that a condition like obesity and the impact that obesity could have on an individual's life. And I think what we've seen in recent years is a massive crackdown on things like alcohol use and even energy drinks. We're seeing we don't see. I certainly don't see as many of the adverts for Red Bull and Monster anymore, and I think it's working. I think there's an ID. You have to have an ID as well to actually purchase. I think you have to be.
16, I think.
16, is it?
I think it's 16 to show that you are old enough. But I mean, they have the right to refuse service of any drink.
We forget that when you eating fast food, when it's so readily available, is a massive concern, and not just in our country but across the world. I think there's a massive concern about, or I feel there should be a massive concern about the consumption of fast food, because it's so easy. There's no age restrictions. There's no restrictions on how when you can buy it, and because they keep popping up everywhere, fast food restaurants do that. That I think it's so important to understand what's going in your body, and not to be tempted by influences that prevent you from reaching your own health and fitness goals.
Yeah, no, I do agree. And between sport, what you drink and what you eat will eventually get to the right solution, and everybody's different and everybody needs a tailored plan. So we're working as a whole nation towards that, and that's the important thing. As long as people recognise it and understand the importance, then we will actually come to a healthier finish and a good result in the end. And just like to say a big thank you for you both coming on and speaking about health and diet, and specifically the new government restrictions on junk food. It's been an interesting podcast, so thank you for coming on and speaking.
No, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. Thanks.
And tune in next week for My Voice podcast. Thank you.